Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Are we ready? Let's learn more about history, guys. Preemptive like. 297 BC. 297 BC, all right? A lot of this stuff can be intimidating right here for me as well. But, 297 BC, master of Italy here. That's the focus. Let's learn. Original link, top description, Discord, all this stuff.
It is a cool summer morning on the slopes of the Apennine Mountains. On the shores of the river Tiber, the bustling town of Tifernum awoke to the noise of the carpenter and his apprentices as they started work on a wealthy trader's veranda, bright and early. The local dressmaker hurried down the main street to her customer, used to hearing the usual catcalling by the baker and fishmonger. As the other tradesmen opened their shops, just outside the town, a Roman army was marching by, commanded by Fabius Maximus. Heading south towards Samnium, they advanced towards the narrow valley, just south of Tifernum. There, hidden in the hillside forest, an army of 25,000 Samnites had...
It's like Teutoburg Forest? Teutoburg?
Set a trap. But before we continue, I want to shout out today's sponsor, Established Titles.
Guys, if this interests you, make sure to use their link.
Titles is a project based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lairds, lords, and ladies. What Established Titles does is give you 1 square foot of land so you can call yourself a lord or a lady, and provides you with an official certificate with a crest. Once you have your certificate, you'll have a unique plot number to see the exact location of your land. And by owning this land, Established Titles allows you to change your name to Lord or Lady on credit cards, plane tickets, or even dating profiles, and much, much more. Through doing this, Established Titles plants a tree with every order and works with global charities, One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future, to support reforestation efforts. And Established Titles told me that the first 200 people purchasing a title pack using my link will effectively be next to my plot, just a few minutes walk between.
What's the purpose of those? To like keep insects?
Pack using my link
or to collect water?
Will effectively be next to my plot, just a few minutes walk between each other. And depending on how many of you want to become a lord or lady, we can build our own little history marsh kingdom. It makes an amazing last-minute gift, and Established Titles is actually running a massive sale. Plus, if you use the code MARSH10, you get an additional 10% off. Go to establishedtitles.com/marsh10 to get your gifts now and help support the channel. Despite emerging victorious after 2 grueling wars, Rome's dominance over central Italy was not yet established. Etruria was not yet pacified, and the hostile Umbria could strike from Despite emerging victorious after 2 grueling wars, Rome's dominance over central Italy was not yet established. Etruria was not yet pacified, and the hostile Umbria could strike from the north. To the south, the Samnites held their own on the battlefield against the Romans and were far from being truly cowed. Equally warlike as the Romans, the Samnites continued to pursue imperialistic ambitions on the Italian peninsula. However, they now faced a rejuvenated Rome. Having learned from their humbling in the Battle of Caudine Forks, the Romans spent years replacing their unwieldy phalanx by adopting the Samnite manipular formation. Furthermore, the recently built Appian Way provided logistical support and the ability to quickly respond at crisis points. The seeds were sown for a third and final war. In 299, a coalition of raiders from Cisalpine and Transalpine Gaul invaded Etruria and were paid off by the Etruscans. The Romans used this as an opportunity to accuse the Etruscans of seeking to ally with the Gauls against Rome, and had in turn allied themselves with the Picentes. Consul Valerius, pretext in hand, moved into Etruria, destroying villages in an unsuccessful attempt to provoke the Etruscans into battle. Then, from the south, Lucanian envoys came seeking help from Rome. The Samnites attempted to form an alliance with them, but once negotiations broke down, Samnite armies marched into Lucania, inflicting several defeats and taking multiple towns. The Romans agreed to aid in the war, less so out of compassion for Lucania, and more out of fear of growing Samnite strength.
Interesting.
The Romans committed to fighting a two-front war against the Samnites and Etruscans. However, the opening campaigns produced mixed results. Consul Scipio Barbatus, the great-grandfather of Scipio Africanus, fought a costly, indecisive battle near Volaterrae. But the Etruscans retreated, leaving the Faliscan district and the territories north of the Tiber open to Roman raids. Scipio's consular colleague, Fulvius Maximus Centumulus, was more successful, advancing into Samnium and achieving victory near Bovianum. He then captured both this city and Aufidena. It is possible that the Samnite forces in the vicinity were insufficient to hold off a full-scale invasion, having not expected the Romans to attack so soon, given their war with Etruria was ongoing. The Roman consular elections for 297 were the first elections to be held following the outbreak of war with the Samnites. Amidst rumors that the Etruscans and Samnites were raising huge armies, fittingly, the voting centuries unanimously chose Fabius Maximus Rullianus. He had been the most successful general of the Second Samnite War, winning as many as 16 battles against the Samnites, the Etruscans, Umbrians, and Apulians. This was the original Fabius, to win the cognomen Maximus. He was the great-grandfather of the Delaia, who would later fight Hannibal. Fabius, however, who was not a candidate for election, to win the cognomen and Apulians. This was the original Fabius, to win the cognomen Maximus. He was the great-grandfather of the Delaia, who would later fight Hannibal. Fabius, however, who was not a candidate for election, refused the proposal.
So Alexander the Great only died like 30 years ago before this? It's just nice to kind of get a tangent, you know, a tangential adjacent thing in your mind that you've learned about that can kind of attach to what you've learned, what you're learning about. It helps out a lot.
He then relented on the condition that Decius Mus, another veteran of the Samnite Wars, who had been consul with Fabius in 308 BC, be elected as his colleague.
Obviously, Alexander the Great is not Roman. I know that. I'm saying just
Still early in 297, envoys came from several southern Etrurian cities with news that they wished to discuss peace. This meant that both Roman consuls could now turn their attention south. The Samnites learned of this and dispatched an army to protect their northern flank. Meanwhile, Fabius was on his way from Rome to take command of the army in Etruria and relieve Scipio, while Decius assumed command in Samnium instead of Fulvius. And he arrived just in time, for another army from Apulia was on its way to reinforce Samnium proper. But Decius intercepted and routed them at Maleventum, with 2,000 Apulians dead and many more captured. Meanwhile, Fabius was now ready and moving south with an army of 20,000 troops. As the 20,000-strong Roman army marched in a loose formation, it appeared they were unaware that a trap was set just south of the town of Tifernum. An army of 25,000 Samnites lay in wait, hidden in the thick hillside forest. ready to ambush the Romans as they passed through the narrow valley. But Fabius made sure to send advanced scout parties and had already detected the ambush. And now he planned a trap of his own. Several hours ago, he sent Scipio with a Hastati detachment on a flanking maneuver, tasking him with finding a way to the rear of the enemy. Meanwhile, Fabius pretended to be conducting a forced march, as if unaware of the ambush, making the Samnites believe that their plan was working. In doing so, he kept the Samnites strewn about the forest and out of formation, as the Romans gradually closed the distance. Once at Tifernum, the consul suddenly halted the column. He ordered the troops to form a square formation. The Samnite leadership that was closest to the Romans could see what was taking place, and had only then realized that they
Right? I'd be like, okay, they're on to us.
could see what was taking place, and had only then realized that they had lost the element of surprise. But their troops further south along the hillside could not see what was taking place at the entrance into the valley, and had no way of knowing that the plan failed. It was too late to reform the line. Then, at the head of the Roman column, Fabius led the square into the narrow valley. The Samnites, meanwhile, passed the word that the Romans prepared to give battle, and ordered the troops to stand by. Knowing that there is no reason to keep hiding, Samnite officers hastily formed their men into battle lines along the hillside. As they moved down the road in formation, Roman troops...
That must have been such a cool, not cool, I mean, for my, obviously you're about to have battle, so not that cool. But just to have everyone just be like, all right, just come out of the woods and form up.
Hillside. As they moved down the road in formation, Roman troops could only catch glimpses of enemy soldiers amongst the trees, and had no way of knowing that the Samnites, in fact, outnumbered them. As Fabius's column crept ever further, suddenly horns sounded off from either side of the narrow valley. An endless swell of battle cries reverberated as the Samnites advanced down the slopes to meet the Romans. Attacking from higher ground, the Samnites quickly took the initiative. Fabius had perhaps underestimated the numerical strength of the enemy, and now his legions were trapped. His square warded off attack after attack, but was slowly being squeezed inwards.
What about the guy you sent around?
The Samnites were clearly getting the upper hand. Fabius pulled the Hastati from the line and reinforced them with his principes. He ordered them to break through the front of the enemy. The Romans gained some ground, but the Samnites put up a fierce resistance, eventually beating back Fabius's strike group. But then, from the rear appeared Scipio at the head of the Roman Hastati. Seeing the charging infantry, the troops from both sides mistakenly thought that this detachment heralded the arrival of the army of the other consul, Decius Mus, who was actually stationed several hundred kilometers to the south in Samnium. Nevertheless, the Roman morale soared, while that of the Samnites collapsed. Before Scipio could make contact, the Samnites lost their nerve and fled into the hills.
Come on.
Having been pressed from all sides, the badly shaken Romans were in no shape to pursue. So, with fairly low casualties, the Samnite army lived to fight another day. Following the encounter at Tifernum,
23 standards taken. So this is a thing that's in the Napoleonic Wars, and it's happening all the way back here. You know, 2,000 years, over 2,000 years before the Napoleonic War. So when were like the first, like when were standards and created, and when did they reach a level of importance that it was worthy of a battlefield statistic, you know?
Following the encounter at Tifernum, Fabius continued his advance south unhindered. Meanwhile,
By the way, I don't want to. I understand the importance of a standard. It is like the pride of your certain legion or whatever your standard represents. I'm not saying that it's not a big deal. I'm just wondering when it started.
Zeus had camped at Maleventum, where he had previously defeated an Apulian army meant to reinforce the Samnites. The two consuls spent the next 5 months devastating Samnium and capturing several towns. However, no triumphs are recorded in the year 2.
I don't want to sound like a psycho. I didn't say nice to them devastating. I meant to him getting that relief army.
97 BC, so it is unlikely that they made any deep inroads into Samnium.
Before being elected in 297 BC, Fabius and Decius were electoral running mates and had previously served together as consuls and censors. They would soon be re-elected again just 2 years later to deal with the growing Samnite threat. Third Samnite War saw some lesser-known Roman generals put into the spotlight, including the fantastically named Valerius the Crow and Volumnius the Violent, footnote 3. While the Romans were victorious at Tifernum, they were unable to cross the Samnite army, to destroy the Samnite army, sorry. This would lead to the decisive Battle of Centium just 2 years later. More on that in the next episode.
During this year,
Sacrifice
the Samnite army was on the back foot, but their numbers were preserved. They were already regrouping to continue the war. Embassies were sent to Etruria, seeking an alliance. The Romans had the upper hand, for now. If you stayed around this far, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment as a sacrifice to the algorithm. You can also support us on Patreon.
I will leave a sacrifice to the algorithm gods.
And get ad-free early access to our videos for as little as $1, or by clicking the thanks button below to leave a one-time tip. As always, we'll see you in the next one.
Okay.
To see you.
Awesome. Blossom. Extra awesome. Hope you're all doing well. If not, chin up. You'll be good soon. Don't worry. And if you can teach me things or if you learn things, that's awesome. And yeah, look forward to your guys' comments. Love for you to join the Discord if that's your thing, or Minecraft stuff. See you guys next time. Bye.